Hey friend, welcome to Balanced and Badass. This channel's all about helping stressed out multitaskers stay balanced and badass with practical tips, a dose of humor, and a little tough love. I'm Tara, your personal growth coach, here to make sure how was your day never triggers a meltdown. So if you're into staying balanced, being a badass, and avoiding any of the meltdowns, then you're in the right place. Be sure to hit subscribe and let's get you living your best life. You're probably here because you're ready to stop overthinking. You've already got enough on your plate. The last thing you need to do is live up in your head, running through all the pros and cons, the life or death situations that aren't really life or death, and really making mountains out of molehills. Overthinking adds a huge mental load to your day, making everything feel heavier and more complicated. So, I'm going to share 5 ways that you can stop overthinking to lighten that mental load. You might not realize it, but the first step to stopping overthinking is to call it out for what it is. When you catch yourself spiraling, stop in that moment and say out loud, I'm overthinking. By calling it out and naming it like this, you are triggering something in your brain that snaps you out of the cycle. And by bringing awareness and acknowledging what's going on, you can then start to shift your energy towards something else, something a little bit more positive. And you can pair this with a physical action like snapping a wrist or snapping a wrist. Don't snap your wrist. Snapping a rubber band on your wrist or tapping your fingers on the table. Anything like that that helps to get your brain to shift. By doing some sort of physical action, you're now out of your head and back kind of into your physical body, which once again brings you out of that cycle so you can shift your focus. And then once you've done that, shift to a small task that you can get done pretty quickly. This triggers in your brain that it's time to get to work, get to action, and get out of thinking. It kind of disrupts that mental loop that overthinking tends to cause, and it leads you to doing something a little bit more constructive with your time. Now, let's be honest, most decisions that we're kind of going back and forth in our brain don't actually need that much time and that much consideration. It's usually not a life or death situation. It's usually not kind of a make it or break it deal, yet we spend so much of our time overthinking and overanalyzing. So, what I want you to do is schedule a timer for 5 minutes. During this 5 minutes, you're going to weigh your pros and cons, take all of the information that you need to take, whatever you need to do, get all the opinions that you need. But during that 5 minutes, that's all you get. Once you do that, you make a decision and you move forward. If you feel that your decision isn't sitting right in your gut, listen to that because your gut gives you a clue as to whether or not you made the right decision. And you can use that for future decision making moving forward. Another method that you can use is to flip a coin. So if you're waiting or kind of weighing different decisions, flip a coin and go with that coin. Let fate decide for you. Once again, this is where you can let your gut kind of talk to you about how you feel about the decision and then move forward and move on. So, overthinking actually feeds off of inaction. It loves when you don't do anything and just sit in your thoughts because that way it can continually run the loop and probably drive you insane. So, what you want to do is take an action, any action, take a step, one tiny small step. So that way you can stop that thinking cycle and tell your brain that no more thinking, we are getting to action. And it doesn't have to be anything huge. Maybe it's just sending an email or making a phone call, but it's something that gets you from thinking to doing. And that's what you want to do because you want to starve the overthinking cycle. And here's a tip for you on that is next time that you catch yourself overthinking, write down the smallest, tiniest, most minuscule task that you can do to get yourself out of that cycle. And I mean, it needs to be almost like ridiculously small so that it's something that you can't not do. It would be silly if you didn't do it. Let's say you have a big project coming up and you know that it's just daunting and you're overthinking it because maybe a promotion is on the line for that. The first thing you need to do for that presentation is come up with the title. Simple, right? Or even more simple than that, let's say it is a slide deck presentation. Figure out what design you want for the slide deck. It's that simple. Or if you're stuck in a decision, just send a quick text to a friend. By doing that small step, like I said, any small step, it helps to break that mental load, but also gives you some momentum to build off of because you have a sense of accomplishment like you've done something. So think about something that you've been overthinking lately. Now write down one tiny, tiny small step that you can take and go do it. You'll see how much better you feel once you've actually started to move in the direction that you want to go rather than just standing still and thinking about it. Now, we live in a world of information overload. And while sometimes that can be a good thing, it also can really weigh on that analysis paralysis kind of state of being. It's so easy now to Google everything, and just because you can Google it doesn't necessarily mean that you should. And so we can often overthinking things get stuck in a state of like research where we're just constantly looking for things to back up our opinions or maybe try to change our minds rather than just making a decision. So instead of getting caught in that endless Google like doom pit, what you need to do is give yourself a limit of how many trusted resources you will reference. So, for example, if you are looking to buy a new kind of tech gadget, and sure, you want to do your research because you're going to be spending money on this and it might be a pretty expensive gadget, limit yourself to like 3 or 4 trusted resources. Set yourself a time limit for looking up and doing the research that you need to do, and then move on. Quit asking for everyone else's opinion on the gadget. Don't keep Googling about the gadget. Go directly to the sources that you want to check out. Go directly to the people that you trust and get their opinions on that gadget. Make your decision and move on. You don't need to know everything. You just need to know enough. The more you limit the noise, the more confident you can be in your decision, and the less time you're going to spend second guessing yourself because you keep seeing contradictory information. Finally, and this is a big one, give yourself some grace. Overthinking often stems from fear, whether that's fear of failure, fear of disappointing someone or making the wrong choice, or it could be just fear of not feeling enough. But my friend, you are enough. And the more that you can embrace your imperfect self, know that you will make mistakes. That's part of life, and you are human. So pretty much everyone's going to expect you to make mistakes. You are allowed to have imperfect moments and imperfect decisions. And once you can accept that freedom, then you can let go of perfectionism and overanalyzing and get out of the overthinking trap. And one thing that I do to help with this overthinking and to give myself a little bit more confidence and the grace in this process is I have a yay me folder and kind of a yay me notes. And what I do is every day I write down just like 1 to 3 things that went really well that day. And they could be the smallest amount of things. Like today, my list is I went to the gym, I did my hair, which rarely ever happens, and I cooked a bomb ass dinner. It doesn't have to be anything related to your professional career. It may not be related to your personal life. The purpose of this Yay Me kind of journal or activity is to build the habit of focusing on your successes and not so much like laser focused on your failures. because as you make that gradual change, you'll be less and less fearful of making the wrong choice or making the wrong decision. And therefore, you won't spend as much time overanalyzing everything that comes your way. So that's that 5 ways to stop overthinking and lighten your load. Imagine what your life could look like if you weren't weighed down by the constant overthinking. You can control your thoughts, you can control your mind, and more importantly, you can control your actions. And if you found today's video helpful, do me a favor. Share it with a friend who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any more tips on staying balanced and badass. And remember, until next time, make good choices.